Good evening, lovely people. Welcome back to the Be Yourself Unapologetically podcast. If you are currently hiding in the bathroom with a cold cup of tea, Googling, can I actually homeschool on zero budget? While the kids argue over who gets the good colouring pencil, then this episode is for you. And if the word homeschool still gives you flashbacks to March 2020, Joe Wicks in the living room and printer ink shortages, you're in the right place too. We all remember COVID, right? None of us asked to become deputy head teachers overnight. Today we're talking about how to home educate your child in the UK with no money for fancy curriculum packs, what full-time education actually looks like at home, spoiler, not recreating 9 till 3 with a whiteboard in the lounge, what the law and local authorities actually say about home education in plain English with real examples. And we're going to sprinkle in a bit of humour to stop your stress level hitting Ofsted inspection in pyjamas. Quick reminder, before we dive in, I'm not a lawyer, I'm sharing general information, not legal advice. If you're in a specific fight with your local authority or school, get proper legal support as well. So, kettle on, take a deep breath, let's go. So, from COVID chaos to conscious home education. Do you remember that first lockdown? 1 minute your biggest worry was whether you'd sign the reading diary. The next minute you're a remote learning facilitator. Your child's teacher is coming through a laptop screen. You're trying to print worksheets on a printer that hasn't worked properly since 2009. For a lot of us, COVID school was a random timetable stuck to the fridge. Oak National Academy on the TV. BBC Bite Size on the tablet. And you desperately trying to remember long division whilst the dog walked across the keyboard. Oak National Academy was literally created in April 2020 as a national online classroom to support children learning at home in lockdown, with thousands of free lessons from reception to year 11. BBC Bite Size became a lifeline, the BBC's free online study support for school-aged children in the UK. But here's the important bit. That was emergency remote schooling. The dog's joining in tonight. Effective home education. What we're talking about today is something very, very different. COVID learning was, here's what the school normally does, now do your best to copy it at home, which was not ideal. Elective home education is, the law says you are responsible for making sure your child gets an education. You can choose to do that at home in your way. Today we're moving from panic, where's the Zoom link, to purpose. What kind of education actually suits my child? What the UK law actually says about home education. Let's ground this in the law because that's what gets waved at parents when things get stressful. In England and Wales, the main bit of the law is Section 7 of the Education Act 1996. It says that the parent of every child of compulsory school age must cause them to receive efficient full-time education suitable to their age, ability, aptitude and to any special educational needs they may have, either by regular attendance at school or otherwise. That tiny word, otherwise, is what home education sits under. So education is compulsory, school is not. You absolutely can home educate in the UK and you don't need to be a qualified teacher. You do, however, have a legal duty to make sure your child gets a suitable, efficient, full-time education. So what does full-time mean at home? I mean, this is a good question, but the full answer is No one defines it exactly. The Department for Education Guidance for Parents says there is no legal definition of full-time in terms of home education. School kids are usually taught around 5 hours a day for 190 days a year, but home education doesn't have to mirror this, because home education is often one-to-one and can happen outside school hours, and it looks very different. Local authority guidance often repeats the same idea. Home ed doesn't need a timetable, fixed hours or school terms, but it should occupy a significant proportion of the child's life over time. So full-time at home might look like 3 to 4 focused hours most weekdays, plus reading in the evening, projects at the weekends, nature walks, cooking, volunteering, clubs. It's the overall picture, not a strict 9 to 3. So what does suitable and efficient actually mean? Again, no rigid legal definition. Guidance and case law suggest efficient equals education that achieves what it set out to achieve. Suitable equals prepares the child for life in the community they're part of and doesn't close down their future options. And crucially, home educators are not required to follow the national curriculum, have a timetable, teach during school hours, use a particular curriculum, or recreate school-style lessons and tests. If your child is learning, progressing, and the education fits them, that's the heart of it. So, what local authorities can and can't do. Now, this is the juicy bit. You pull your child out of school, you send them the deregistration letter, you're planning a gentle decompression term, and then a letter arrives. Dear parent carer, we have been notified you are electively home educating. We would like to see and visit your home and see your child. So, cue the heart palpitations. Let's break down what local authorities actually have powers to do in general terms. Their duty. Local authorities in England have a duty under Section 436A of the Education Act 1996 to make arrangements to identify children in their area who are not receiving a suitable education. Excuse me. Whether in school or otherwise. So they do have to keep an eye on children in general, but that's not the same as having automatic control over your home education. Informal inquiries. So case law, including Phillips v Brown 1980, established that local authorities are allowed to make informal inquiries if they're not satisfied that a child is getting suitable education. In practice, this usually looks like a letter asking you to provide information about your education provision, an invitation to meet or a suggested home visit. You are not legally obliged to accept a home visit. In most cases, many local authority protocols acknowledge they have no statutory power to enter homes or see the child, just to monitor elective home education unless there are separate safeguarding concerns. I have a tickly throat tonight. Sorry, everyone. You are expected to give some information to show that your child is receiving a suitable education. So that can be a written report, samples of work, photos, a learning plan, or meeting somewhere neutral if you want. It doesn't have to be at home. If you ignore all the correspondence and provide nothing, the local authority may decide that it appears your child isn't suitably being educated. That's when it can escalate it. Notices and school attendance orders a real world pathway. A common pathway looks like this. Not legal advice, just the broad shape you'll see in the guidance in the real cases. Informal enquiry. Please tell us about your home education. If they feel they still don't have enough evidence, they can issue a Section 437 notice asking you to satisfy them that your child is receiving suitable education. If they're still not satisfied after that, they can move towards a school attendance order requiring your child to attend a named school. The landmark Phillips v Brown case involved a home educating parent who refused to provide information and then challenged the resulting school attendance order. The court accepted that the local authority is entitled to make inquiries and that parents who give no information risk enforcement. Moral of the story: you don't have to fling open your front door and put the kettle on for the EHE officer, but you do need to be able to show in some form that your child is being educated. And we can do that without spending a penny. The reason I've looked into this is because, like, you know, what we're going through at the moment, it's a bit harder because it's like GCSE years for my daughter. But so what does full-time education at home actually look like? So if we get practical, so you've taken your child out of school or never sent them in the first place, you want to home educate, but you have no budget. So what does a real full-time education at home actually look like day to day? So let's myth busting first. Myth 1, you must replicate school. It's 9 to 4 with subjects every hour. That's how it was for my daughter. But nope. Guidance is clear that home ed doesn't have to follow school hours, days, or even terms. Myth 2, you need a Pinterest perfect classroom corner. Your kitchen table, sofa, library park bench, back garden and bus stop count as learning spaces. Myth 3, you need a full box curriculum before you start. What you actually need is curiosity, paper, pencils, internet access if you can get it, and a willingness to learn alongside your child. A realistic zero budget weekday. Here's an example of what full-time might look like over a day using only free resources. So morning, roughly 2 to 3 hours with breaks. Literacy, 20 to 30 minutes reading together library books, ebooks or free online texts. For older kids, independent reading and a quick chat about what they've read. Writing, 3 BBC bite-sized English activities for their age group. Or a short writing prompt you invent on a scrap piece of paper. Maths, a BBC bite-sized or Oak National Academy lesson with practice questions. Or a Khan Academy session, all free for older kids. Afternoon, 1 to 2 hours with flexibility. Project work based on their interests. Space, animals, history, dinosaurs, fashion design, coding, baking, whatever it is that they're interested in. Use Oak National Academy or BBC Bite Size for background. Then do something hands-on. Outdoors PE. Walk, park, geocaching, football in the field, YouTube, PE videos. Evening, life learning. Cooking, that's maths and science. Budgeting pocket money, more maths. Documentaries, podcasts, audiobooks. Over a week, you've covered literacy, numeracy, science, history or geography, art, PE and social skills without paying for a single workbook. For teens and exam years. Now, for older children, you might add maths and science, Khan Academy, free. Structured courses from basic maths up to early college level, physics, chemistry and biology. Richer maths thinking, NRICH. Free problem solving tasks and games from ages 3 to 18 used by schools and home educators. The NRICH, so remember that one. Subject deep divers. So the Oak National Academy for GCSE style topics in English, maths, science, history, geography and more. Revision. BBC Bite Size GCSE sections, which are all free. Exams themselves will cost money if you choose the GCSE route. There's no way around that, but covering the content can be done on a shoestring, especially if you plan early. Free resources when you have literally no budget. So let's talk about concrete freebies, because the internet is a jungle. Core online resources, all free to access. Number 1, BBC Bite Size. Free online study support for UK school age learners. Covers all the main subjects from early years to GCSE. The Oak National Academy, created in response to COVID school closures. Free lessons, slides and quizzes from reception to year 11 are still available. Khan Academy. Free worldwide platform. Maths, science, computing, humanities and more. Completely free for learners and teachers. So the NRICH, Enrich Maths. They're from the University of Cambridge. Thousands of free math problems, games and printable resources for ages 3 to 18. Now, Twinkle, something I've been part of for a long time, because at one point in my life I was going to home educate my daughter. Now, in hindsight, I should have done it back then. But Twinkle is usually paid, but they offer thousands of free resources, plus a free sample home education pack and a weekly free download with a basic account. Offline and community resources. Your local library for a start. Free books, audiobooks, sometimes free access to online study sites, museums and galleries. Many are free entry or have free days. These absolutely count as education. Parks and nature reserves. Science, geography, art, PE and mental health in one go. Home education groups. Look on Facebook groups, WhatsApp chats and in-person meetups, often run free or low-cost meetups, part days and co-ops. And remember, life is curriculum. Cooking is maths, literally, science, PSHE. Shopping on a budget, economics and numeracy. Fixing a bike, physics and problem solving. Looking after younger siblings, childcare, empathy and communication. Real cases, real stress and a bit of humour. So let's weave the law and the reality together with a couple of real world examples. Some from case law, some from typical scenarios home educators report. So the case that I'll keep talking about, the Phillips v Brown 1980. So we've already mentioned this one. So in Phillips v Brown, a home educating parent refused to provide any information to the local authority about their child's education. That led to a school attendance order and a court case. The court heard that local authorities can make reasonable inquiries about home education. If parents refuse to give any information at all, the authority may reasonably conclude the child isn't receiving suitable education and take action. So, lesson learned. But don't panic about the law, but also don't ghost your local authority. Case 2, the COVID cohort. During the pandemic, millions of children were suddenly learning at home using Oak, National Academy and BBC Bitesize. Oak delivered millions of lessons in its first term. It was specifically funded to provide free online lessons for children in lockdown. The COVID cohort meant parents got an accidental crash course in home learning. Many realised their children thrived without the noise, bullying or pressures of school. Some later chose elective home education permanently, but this time on their own terms, not to replicate school. So if you feel you're failing because your home doesn't look like a classroom, remember, even the government's big emergency plan for education during COVID was, here are some free videos and resources, do your best. You're allowed to build something gentler and more tailored than that. The home visit stress. Typical story. Parent deregisters their autistic or anxious child. Local authority writes offering a home visit. Parent is terrified it's a mini Ofsted for their living room. In reality, many local authority protocols explicitly state they don't have automatic powers to enter your home or see the child just for EHE monitoring. They can request information and offer a visit, but evidence can be provided in either forms. No one is going to inspect how many unmatched socks are on your stairs. They're interested in learning, not laundry. If a visit makes you anxious, you can say, I'm happy to provide information in writing instead. And then you can send a simple summary, what you're doing for maths, English, etc. How you adapt for any special needs. Some examples of work or activities. It doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to be honest and clear. Gentle reassurance for the tough days. Let's be honest. Some days home education feels magical. Your child is happily absorbed in a project. You're both learning something genuinely interesting and you think, why didn't we do this sooner? Other days, they refuse every activity. You Google schools near me in a moment of weakness and you eat biscuits in the kitchen wondering if you've ruined their life. Here's what I want you to hear. Home education doesn't have to be perfect to be legal or valuable. The law talks about efficient, suitable, full-time, not Instagrammable worksheets heavy colour-coded. You are allowed to experiment, change your approach, unschool for a bit, then reintroduce structure. And yes, we all still have a bit of COVID trauma, but you're not that person anymore, trying to juggle key worker status, Teams calls, school expectations and toilet paper shortages. Now you get to build something calmer, slower and actually aligned with your child. Quick checklist. Am I doing it right? Before we wrap up, here's a simple self-check you can run through on a Sunday night instead of spiralling on Google. 1. Is my child learning something most days? Reading, watching, making, doing, talking, problem solving, it all counts. Over a few weeks, are we broadly covering literacy, reading, writing, speaking and listening? Numeracy, some mix of science, nature and technology. Something creative, art, music, building. Movement, PE. Life skills and social interaction. Could I describe our education in writing if the local authority asked? A couple of pages about what we do plus examples of work. Does the education feel suitable for my child? Are we adapting to their age, ability, interests and any sen? If you can mostly say yes with some off days because you're human, you're very likely doing far better than you think. So to recap, yes, you can home educate in the UK with no budget. Exams will always have to be paid for. There is no way around that. The law says you must provide a suitable, efficient, full-time education, but it doesn't have to look like school or cost a fortune. Local authorities can make inquiries, but they can't just march into your living room because you decided to ditch the school run. Provide clear information and you reduce the stress massively. Free resources like BBC Bite Size, Oak National Academy, Khan Academy, NRICH and Twinkle's free tier give you more than enough to build a solid education without spending money. And remember, you survived COVID homeschool. You can absolutely handle intentional home education with tea, memes and the occasional today's lesson is life skills and mental health. We're going for a walk. If you like, I can also script a short friendly letter you can send to your local authority explaining your provision, or put together a one-page no-budget home and plan that you can adapt to your child's age. You are not alone in this. You are allowed to choose what's right for your child, even if it doesn't fit the tick boxes. So just write in the comments if you need a script or a one-page no-budget home ed plan, instead of me always talking about the scripts on the podcast. So if you need these things, send me a message and I will get them to you. Thank you for listening. Have a great week.